Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Clean Reads podcast. I'm your host, Izzy, and today I'm going to be reviewing the Keeper the Lost City series. If I sound frazzled right now, it's because I by mistakenly deleted the recording before this one. So if you could just bear with me if I sound like hesitant, it's because of that, okay? So we can't get that back, but we can record this one now. Anyway, so the reason why I'm going to be recording the Keeper the Lost City series by Shannon Messenger, and one of the reasons why I picked this book is because, like, this series to review, is because I got recommended it by one of my friend's friend and on a beach trip, and she told me about it, that her brothers had loved it, the whole series, and she said that I should read it. But I wasn't really a big reader at that point. I was more into like video games and things of that sort. So I would read a book every now and again. I decided to take the plunge a few months ago into this series, and I really enjoyed the first one. Anyway, let's get on to I'm still a little bit frazzled from 5 seconds ago. Let's get on to reviewing the very first book in this gigantic series. So this series is like, I think the 10th book is coming out in November of this year, and I am really excited to get the first book, which is labeled The Keeper of the Lost Cities. So we follow this 12-year-old girl named Sophie Foster, and she basically, I want to say, has superpowers, but don't think The Incredibles or anything like that. She can hear people's thoughts, and she can like read people's minds, kind of thing. Not like in a spooky way, but like in a, I don't actually know how to say it, but it's just in a weird way, and she doesn't know why. She's afraid to tell her parents and her sister. She's always felt like the odd one out in many situations. She's extremely smart. She is in like a senior in high school, even though she's 12 years old. It's just because she is so ahead of her class for being 12 years old. And also, this is not a spoiler. This is just something that you learn from pretty much chapter 1. Then you meet her at a museum, and then across the way she sees a guy who you come to know as Fitz, and he says, "Are you the one? Are you like one of us?" And she's like, "What in the world are you talking about? What are you talking about? Why are you, some stranger is coming up to me right now?" I already feel sad for him already. But anyway, and she figures out, this is like within the first few chapters, like I want to say chapter 5, she figures this out. And if you think that's a spoiler, then you can go ahead and skip ahead. But this is, to me, this is not a spoiler because you learn it really, really quickly. But anyway, she discovers that she is actually an elf, like Fitz, who has the same power as she does. And these are not, I love that they make the reference to the Santa Claus elves. They're more like, think of the elves in the Lord of the Rings. They can't die unless they're killed, obviously, but they can't die of old age. People want to come after her because she does have a special ability. She is the only elf that has brown eyes, which I thought was hilarious. But it makes you get to really enjoy Sophie's character and kind of relate to her in some sense. I would say this is probably like a 4-star series, but I wouldn't say personally it's like a 5-star. I have read 5-star series before, like the fairy tale Inheritance series by Shauna Slayton. I actually did an entire series review on my podcast, so I did it recently. So if you look on my channel, you can find it really easily. It was a really fun video. I recommend checking it out. But The romance in here, and pretty much in all of these books, are just crushes. Nobody kisses. It's like, at least with the first 3 books that I'm reviewing, there has been no kisses. There have been crushes and pining and like blushing, just like super mild mannered kind of romance. If you are looking for your 12-year-old or 11-year-old to want to read, and if they like fantasy, it's hilarious reading this, and you get to really enjoy the characters. A big trigger warning, I would say, and you can skip this part if you want. And this is toward the end of the book, is that she gets Sophie and one of her elf friends named Dex gets captured by a bad group, but they get kidnapped and she gets tortured, and so does Dex. They get drugged and they get kidnapped, and the fact that these books are rated 8 to 12 is ridiculous. These should not be for your 8-year-old. If you are more lenient on letting your kids know what kidnapping is and knowing what torture is and things like that, I would recommend at least letting them read it when they're 10 years old. Just because it is not graphic, but it is talked about in there and it's actively happening. Even though this is written in third person, the first book made me cry. Another trigger warning could be, you can skip this part as well, is that she gets separated from her parents. They adopted her when she was a baby in the hospital. Also, her parents and her little sister get their memory wiped. There's really no language at all, really. I don't even remember, like, just like simple things like dumb, maybe idiot. I recommend this series for ages to 18. Just because of the content within each one, your child or you should at least be 10 years old until you start reading the series. Just because of some of the things in there you might be scared about. And it's better to be safe than sorry, especially when it comes to reading, because our minds can go into dark places. I've even had this experience when I'm reading and there's a bad thing that happens and I immediately DNF the book, but that sometimes it just runs around in my head over and over, thinking of worse scenarios than what I've actually read. And they're more vivid because you are thinking them. They're not something that you watched on TV. And it's just something that you should be cautious about when you are deciding, I'm going to read this book or that book, because the content, okay, that's the moral of this. You want to be cautious. Now, book 2, Exile. So we follow Sophie, and this time one of her other boys who are friends, and yes, there's I want to say a love triangle, but honestly it's a love square, because there's 3 guys that kind of like Sophie. Well, 2 guys who like Sophie, and then 1 guy she likes. So anyway, the romance in here, there is, oh my goodness, I just remember the violence. Okay, first we're going to do the romance in here. So in this story, Sophie finds one of the last female alicorns in their entire world, and they cannot let the alicorn species become extinct. So she builds a relationship with her, and she has to protect her from the bad guys who kidnapped her. Anyway, one of the things is that Keefe and Sophie when Sophie is riding the alicorn in one scene, Keefe puts his hands or arms around Sophie's waist, because it's like when you're riding a horse, if you've ever ridden a horse with someone, it's what you would do. But because it is her like a boy, she like blushes and everything. Same thing as the other one. There's crushes and things like that. Also, can we just give a shout out to Sandor? I love Sandor. I think that's, if I'm getting the bodyguard wrong, you can shout me out in the comments. I think he should be played by The Rock, if Dwayne Johnson, if they do a movie. She has a best friend named Dex, as I said in the previous book. In the previous book, he was with her a lot of the time. And Keefe is more of like the rambunctious, goofy boy in the series. Violence, someone gets drugged almost to death. And that's me not giving any spoilers. If you want to like really know what happens, you can look at pluggedin.com if you do want to know what is in this book as far as violence is concerned. But I'm trying to be minimalist on the spoilers, as I do with every video, and try not to spoil anything for you guys. And wounds also while fighting, and this happens more towards the end of the book as well. In the beginning of the book, someone has a mind break, which is when they become, in a sense, pain-wise unconscious within their mind. It's complicated. It's so complicated to explain unless you read the series. And if you are a parent that wants to read this beforehand, before your child, and that's another way that you can do that, is just read it and decide for yourself. I'm not a parent. I'm just recommending and telling as much as content as I can without being overbearing and boring, and also not spoilering everything. The third book and the final book that I'm going to be reviewing is Everblaze, and this one was really good. Exile was actually probably my favorite. So, Sophie, in the description, it says Sophie uncovers shocking secrets and faces treacherous new enemies in this electrifying third book in the Keep Velocity series. Sophie Foster is ready to fight back. Her talents are getting stronger, and with the elusive Black Swan group ignoring her calls for help, she's determined to find her kidnappers before they come after her again. But a daring mistake leaves her world teetering on the edge of war and causes many to fear that she has finally gone too far. And the deeper Sophie searches, the farther the conspiracy stretches, proving that her most dangerous enemy might be closer than she realizes. So in here, this one probably has one of the most violence out of the three, due to the fact that there are fires, like uncontrollable fires, and buildings being destroyed as a result of those fires. Someone dies in a fire, a prominent person, I will not say who, but he does die in the fire. And this is spoiler-ish. If you want to skip that, that's fine. But this is also something that's kind of gruesome in a sense. Someone's hand is burned off. Also, a male alicorn has a bad past where he was tortured and his family got killed. So just those two things, they might be spoilers if you don't want to hear that. So I hope you skipped ahead. But it is more intense. And also, Sophie gets more tortured by people who are close to her, which I feel like is more painful. So that is also something that you want to, not friends and family, not that. I will just say that. It's not her family who tortures her. That's something I will say. For you who are parents who don't want your child to be reading, like where the parents are against their children or vice versa, that's not what happens. If you look at the cover, Fitz rescues Sophie from a building, which is part of the violence that is in there, by holding her around her waist. And she and Keefe go out and look for this star, I think. This was such a blur of a book. It was a great first 3 books of a series, and I cannot wait to read book 5. It's gonna be 700 pages, I think. Hey, I'm hoping that one of these books is 1,000 pages, and I can say I read a 1,000-page middle grade book. I want to say that of a middle grade, a young adult, and an adult novel, or part of a series. But yeah, that's a personal goal. I hope you guys enjoyed listening to this podcast episode. If you would like to hear a little review that I did with my friend Alana, if you would like to hear a book review where I quote interrogate, I'm just kidding, my friend Alana, who comes, she's a big fantasy reader like I do, and we just discuss our favorite series and things like that. It was really fun, and I hope you go listen to it after this one. And if you listen to more of middle grade books than young adult, I would checking out my friend Samantha's podcast on Spotify called The Cozy Kitten Book Chat. If you are on YouTube, the link is down below. And also, if you are on Spotify, the link is down below as well. And also, I have, whichever platform, I have a YouTube and a Spotify podcast on there. So if you are listening to either one, I recommend go subscribing or following whichever platform you are. I just want to say thank you for those who are listening right now, because I know this is a more newer podcast and it's not super popular. I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. I hope that I'm doing the Lord's work in all that I'm doing with reviewing books. I originally set out on this plan to glorify the Lord and telling people what books are good and what books aren't. I hope that you have found good books and also books to stay away from. And that you would continue to be blessed by this podcast. I really hope that I am helping people. And I hope you have a great rest of the day. And I'll see you next time. Bye.